Just so you know, this show is about scary stuff. So don't say I didn't warn you guys. And remember, don't be scared.
Episode 133, Little Boy Lost. War Baby here with another episode of Murderous Minors. Hey lovelies, summer break is over and we're back, so let's start with a quick update. On episode 61, Ethan's Laws, I told you about 14-year-old Damien Hoschultz of Wisconsin, who was accused of murdering his 7-year-old cousin Ethan Hoschultz in April 2018. In February 2019, the teen was charged with first-degree reckless homicide, 3 counts of child abuse, and 3 counts of substantial battery. Ethan had been home with his older cousin Damien, who now stands accused of subjecting the boy to hours of physically torturous punishment and abuse that ultimately led to his death, all allegedly at the direction of Damien's father, Ethan's great-uncle Timothy. Damien is the son of 38-year-old Tina McKeever Hoschultz and 50-year-old Timothy Hoschultz, who were 7-year-old Ethan's court-appointed guardians, and prosecutors allege that they played a part in the boy's ultimate death, even though they weren't home at the time. Tina McKeever Hoschultz has already been found guilty of felony failure to prevent mental harm to a child and felony child abuse, receiving 5 years in prison on March 12, 2021. Timothy Hoschultz was arrested and charged with felony murder, child abuse, battery, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor causing death. In late June 2021, a then 17-year-old Damien Hoschultz pled guilty to first-degree reckless homicide and had his 6 remaining charges dropped. In September 2021, he received 20 years in prison for Ethan's murder, followed by 10 years of extended supervision and an order of no contact with minors or with any of Ethan's siblings. The teen has since appealed, making him unavailable to testify in his father Timothy's trial, which has now been postponed, at least until the son's appeal has been resolved. The man had been set to go to trial starting on December 6, 2021, but his son would have had to invoke his Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate himself, as his testimony could go on to be used against him in his own appeals proceedings. After being in custody for more than 3 years, his bail was reduced, and reports indicate that his bond was posted on May 26, 2022, when he was released with an ankle monitor. Pre-trial motions continue in his case, which will likely resume in full force when Damien's appeal has been resolved. This week on Murderous Minors, we're back in Wales, UK, and looking at a recent case that brought to my mind that of Ethan Hoschultz's, the murder of 5-year-old Logan Mwangi in late July 2021. Reports indicate that Logan's was a brutal, violent death inflicted by abuse, so please be advised. As in Ethan's case, some of Logan Mwangi's convicted killers are also related to him, but this time it was the boy's very own mother, Angharad Williamson. I drew parallels in my mind because the adults in each case tried to deflect personal responsibility and shift blame solely onto their juvenile co-defendants, in this case, Craig Mulligan. Reports refer to him as Logan's, quote, stepbrother, although the third killer, 40-year-old John Cole, was not Mulligan's father, but his mother's former boyfriend, while Logan was the son of Cole's current partner, 32-year-old Angharad Williamson. Extensive, in-depth reporting by Wales Online and the BBC, plus the ITV documentary The Murder of Logan Mwangi, made this episode possible. Let's start way back in October 2007 when Craig Mulligan was born in Coventry, England. When he was 5, his biological father was killed in a car accident, but by then, his biological mother was already in a relationship with John Cole. During their relationship, Cole's rap sheet expanded to include convictions for crimes such as common assault, resisting or obstructing a constable, burglary, theft, handling stolen goods, going equipped for theft, possession of a bladed article, criminal damage, possession of cannabis, resisting a police officer, intimidation of a witness, battery, blackmail, and perverting the course of justice. In 2019, after being with Craig Mulligan's mother for more than 10 years, Cole met a woman at a pub who was a decade younger than him, named Angharad Williamson, and began a relationship with her. According to Wales Online, Logan's mother was born in London and went to private school as the daughter of 2 stockbrokers. Following her graduation, she enrolled in film school but ran afoul with the law after taking her mother's car and also using her credit cards without her permission. One day after turning 25, she gave birth to her only child, Logan, in March 2016, a child she'd had with a man named Ben Mwangi. He later recalled being the first person to hold Logan. The couple didn't stay together, and he explained later that, quote, "She blocked my number. For the past pretty much 5 years, I've been struggling to try and fight just to see Logan. She made my life an absolute misery. All I've wanted to do, was just be a dad." Williamson went on to marry a soldier who was stationed nearby, though they divorced soon after. She and Logan moved back in with her mother in Bridgend, South Wales, and the 2 women worked together to raise him up, while Ben Mwangi, who lived almost 4 hours away in Essex, England, was only allowed to see his son a couple of times throughout his entire life. In January 2019, Williamson secured public housing and moved into her own 2-bedroom apartment in Bridgend, and a few months later in April, J. Cole came to stay. Williamson had non-epileptic seizure disorder that began in pregnancy that by then had made it unsafe for her to work, so she collected disability. Her mother called her her best friend, but also referred to her as a melodramatic person, while teachers at Logan's school called her, quote, over-emotional, over-familiar, overprotective, and generally volatile. Logan, however, was remembered as a, quote, happy, jolly little kid and a, quote, loving, kind, polite little boy who was, quote, good-behaved and listened. It was following a visit to Logan's father in Essex in the spring of 2019 that tensions began to rise, according to Williamson, who said that when they returned home, Cole was cold to her and assumed she'd been inappropriate with her ex-boyfriend. She said later that, quote, he was very cold to me. I felt like I was being interrogated a lot. Williamson went on to describe Cole repeatedly questioning little Logan about the events of the visit, claiming that he would ask the boy if his parents had been kissing. Later, she would say she was aware that her son was being, quote, picked on by her boyfriend, and admitted she did nothing about it. Meanwhile, Cole continued to be a part of Craig Mulligan's life, even after he left the boy's mother for Williamson in 2019. In August 2020, almost a year before Mulligan came to live with them, he reportedly pushed Logan down a flight of stairs, resulting in the toddler fracturing his arm, an incident that Williamson claimed not to know the truth about for several months. Instead of taking her son to receive medical treatment, she reportedly told police later that, quote, I decided I could pop Logan's arm back in place. I took a firm hold of Logan's arm, pulled it straight, and twisted it back. I put it back in place and heard a click. Logan was in pain when it clicked back in place, but it felt better and he stopped crying. At the time, I thought I was doing the right thing by putting his arm back in place, but I now realize it was a mistake. She changed her story, however, a few months later in January 2021, now telling police over the phone that it had actually been a push by a then 12-year-old Craig Mulligan that had broken her son's arm back in August, not an accidental fall. Mulligan had been living with his mother up until then, but by January 2021, he'd been placed in the care of the Bridgend County Borough Council, reportedly because his mother attacked and assaulted him. She was consequently involuntarily committed under the Mental Health Act. Other reports revealed that she allegedly faked a cancer diagnosis, and as a result of these incidents, Mulligan was removed from her care. By then, the 13-year-old, who had obtained the level of green belt in the martial art of Muay Thai, was reportedly referred to as, quote, manipulative and as, quote, having a desire for violence. He was known to use a baby voice if he got into trouble, and he had a history of attacking other students without cause. While in foster care, he was said to have constantly talked about his favorite movie series, The Purge, and even told his foster family that he was going to kill them all when the new installment in the film franchise was released. They said he was known to assault little kids in the neighborhood and had even abused their dog by spraying deodorant in his eyes and by handling him by his hind legs. The daughter of the foster parents reported that Mulligan had tried to get her little cousins to play, quote, a murder game in the woods, telling them that he was going to put them into black trash bags, which would eventually be how Logan Mwangi was found. She claimed to have reported such incidents to Mulligan's social worker, but said that the woman, quote, brushed it off as if it was nothing. The social worker said that during her banter with Mulligan, he tended to use foul language and would even tell her to F off, though she considered this behavior to be conversational and a result of their friendly relationship. She did, however, end up admitting that at times the teen went, quote, too far. Though Logan's murder took place only a handful of days after Mulligan joined the family, the little boy's abuse and his, quote, stepbrother's participation in it had been going on for years. At the time of Logan's murder, Mulligan was only referring to him as, quote, the 5-year-old, and said repeatedly in the weeks leading up to it that he wanted to kill the little boy. As far as Logan's abuse is concerned, it's speculated that Cole's dislike of his girlfriend's child was racial in nature, as the boy's father is black, and Cole is reportedly, quote, very racist to Asian or black people or any people who are different. The man fixated on Logan's stutter and gave him the humiliating nickname of Cocoa Pop due to his skin tone. Cole is also reportedly a former member of the National Front, a far-right fascist political organization in the United Kingdom. The prosecutor would later state that, quote, Cole didn't like Logan, treated him unkindly, and viewed him differently because he held, quote, long-standing racist beliefs. The couple's friends, relatives, and others also bore witness to the continual abuse of Logan Mwangi, with a friend of Williamson's testifying that Cole had once told her flat out that he didn't like the boy, but that, quote, he would always love Angharad even if he didn't love Logan. Another friend recounted seeing Logan being punished at the age of 3 in 2019. Over time, the friend recalled, Logan had become, quote, withdrawn, lost visible weight at the time, his complexion was quite pale, his demeanor was very down and quiet. He was becoming more withdrawn because he was being punished all the time. Staff at his school even noticed a change, both in Logan's demeanor and in his physical appearance, as he'd been, quote, losing weight and having dark circles around his eyes. His stutter was worsening too, and he had bathroom accidents, after which he requested that his soiled clothes be thrown away at school. These incidents occurred before Logan was pushed down the stairs and fractured his humerus, and in the months that followed, neighbors continued to be subjected to all manner of loud outbursts from the home. There were reports of shouting that neighbors soon came to realize was Logan being yelled at by Cole and Williamson, whose tone was often described as, quote, aggressive and nasty. In March 2021, 4 months before Logan was murdered, he was put on the Child Protection Register because people were worried about how Cole and Mulligan were treating him, and a social worker was supposed to show up every week and a half to check on the boy. Logan's social worker said that his mother seemed to, quote, adore and only want the best for her son. Cole, she said, though, was intimidating at first, but over time their relationship got better. He was busy trying to get custody of Mulligan right at this time, as the teen had already been in foster care for a few months. Also in June 2021, Logan was moved from the Child Protection Register and put on a Child in Need plan instead, indicating that he was no longer at immediate risk, but that he continued to need intervention to aid in his development. Cole was granted custody of Craig Mulligan the following month, with the man claiming that he was not forewarned that the teen had been saying that he wanted to kill Logan or that he'd had issues with his foster family. Mulligan moved into Williamson's home permanently on July 26, 2021, and 5-year-old Logan was last seen alive by someone outside the family the following day. He was then diagnosed with COVID-19 and forced to quarantine alone in his room. When I finally reach the end of another crazy day, don't be alarmed if I sneak away and grab a few minutes to play Best Fiends, the free-to-download casual mobile puzzle game that does a great job of clearing my mind. It's the kind of game you can play anywhere at any time with no pressure and no Wi-Fi needed. When I'm in the zone, it's hard to put down because the fun just keeps on coming. And adults always think that fun is only for kids, but logging some daily fun time on Best Fiends has become my go-to activity for winding down. I play while my polish is drying or while I'm waiting for a commercial break to end. Anytime I can squeeze a level in, I do. I'm on level 915 now and can't wait to break 1000. With thousands of levels to play and new events and challenges always popping up, now is a great time to get in on the fun. Download your new favorite getaway, Best Fiends, for free today on the App Store or Google Play. You'll even get $5 worth of in-game rewards when you reach level 5. That's friends without the R, Best Fiends. Trouble began brewing a few days later when a neighbor reported seeing Mulligan trying to keep a crying Williamson from leaving the property on July 29, 2021. The neighbor recalled her being, quote, hysterical and telling Mulligan that he was making a scene. The teen appeared, quote, desperate to get his new stepmother back inside of their house. Williamson later explained that she was attempting to flee because Cole and Mulligan were violently abusing her son with punches to the stomach and by sweeping his legs and knocking him to the floor. The following afternoon, on July 30th, 2021, Mulligan's social worker stopped by, at which time the teen informed her that she could F off. Cole and Williamson kept her from entering the house because Logan was quarantined, but she did speak to them for roughly 20 minutes. In regards to the rest of that day, Cole later admitted to, quote, clipping Logan on the back of his head with his hand that night over an argument about a bath, and said that Williamson had grabbed her son by the collar of his pajama shirt and yelled in his face. Security camera footage from a residence behind their home indicates that several hours later, at 2:43 a.m., J. Cole carried the lifeless, dangling body of 5-year-old Logan Mwangi away from the home inside a black trash bag. The light was on in Logan's bedroom, and the security camera also showed the curtain being opened 1 minute after Cole and Mulligan carried Logan's body away into the night. Their street faces a large open green field divided by some woods that line the trail of the River Ogmore, encompassed by Pandy Park, which residents can easily access. In the footage, a figure that is alleged to be 13-year-old Craig Mulligan is seen by Cole's side, their images backlit by the outdoor security lighting. They walked along the river and discarded Logan's body in it, close to the train bridge and near to a sewer pipe. The video shows the pair arriving back at the house at 2:51 a.m. before they're recorded leaving for a second time at 3:16 a.m. to toss Logan's ripped pajama top into the woods. They returned home for the final time at 3:27 a.m. and Logan's bedroom light switched off for the rest of the night at 3:31. Not too long after, at around 5 a.m., a neighbor distinctly heard, quote, bickering and a hysterical woman yelling Logan's name and saying, quote, "What have you done with my son? Where is my son? The back door is wide open." About 45 minutes later, at 5:46 a.m. on July 31st, 2021, Angharad Williamson called police to report that her 5-year-old son Logan was missing, referencing Mulligan's mother several times, seemingly trying to implicate her in a retaliation kidnapping.
My son is alive, he's not here!
Okay, take a breath. When did you see him last?
I saw him in the bed last night and I just got up for my son and the other one's not here! Logan!
Okay, take a breath. He's 5 and he's gone. Can you see it?
Logan!
I need you to speak to me, not to shout. I know it's really full on and it's really scary. I need you to tell me. What's his name? Is his name Logan?
Logan Williamson, please.
And he's 5. Is he 5, did you say?
He's 5, please.
Tell me what he looks like, please.
He's a little mixed race boy. He's just got his spidey pajamas on. Wearing shoes.
Okay, is anybody else there with you? Any other adults?
Yeah, my partner. He's looking now.
Right. Are any of the doors or windows open?
What doors, windows, what's open? Someone tell me what.
Take a breath. I know that this is terrifying. But right now I need you to try to breathe so I can get the information I need.
My back gate's open.
Okay, back gate. Where does the back gate lead to?
I don't know what the road's called.
That's fine. It leads onto a road as opposed to a field or anything like that, does it? Okay.
I'm running up it now. It's concrete.
Okay. What's your name?
Look at him now.
What's your name? I need to know your name a second.
Angharad.
Okay, Angharad, I really need you to just take a breath for a second, okay? Because you're starting to hyperventilate. I know that this is very, very scary. I need you to stay in the house. So who's run out after Logan?
My fiance, my partner.
Your partner has. Okay. So Dad's gone out looking, yeah? What's Dad's name?
John Cole. He's stepdad, but virtually dad.
Police began their search by 5:55 a.m., and when they arrived, Cole and Mulligan were out searching the tree line and could be heard on security cameras searching and calling out Logan's name. The officer who located Logan's body said, quote, Logan was laying on his right side in an open fetal position. He was submerged under the water. I could see he had an injury to the left side of his face. His eyes were open, his body was stiff, his lips were blue. Immediately I formed the opinion Logan was deceased. He was transported to the Princess of Wales Hospital in Bridgend, where he was pronounced dead at 7:15 a.m. Logan had a laceration on his forehead along with 55 other identifiable injuries, and there was nothing to indicate that the 5-year-old had drowned. Instead, there was evidence of blunt force trauma and, quote, a forceful assault made up of a blow or blows, a kick or kicks, or impacts with a weapon. His injuries were described as catastrophic and included a torn bowel, a lacerated liver, and damage to his small intestine. The pathologist revealed that Logan had widespread contusions to his scalp and head, bleeding inside the skull, and extensive brain trauma, some of which likely came from previous episodes of abuse. The child's collarbone was in the process of improperly healing from a previous fracture. Logan's injuries were so catastrophic that doctors likened them to, quote, a fall from a great height or a high-speed car crash, and his cause of death was listed as blunt force abdominal injury, cerebral injury, and traumatic brain injury. Body cams worn by the officers captured a distraught and hysterical Angharad Williamson, and Cole reported that she'd suffered at least one seizure early on in the day. Investigators who interacted with the trio once Logan went missing had rather interesting observations about the behavior of Mulligan, Williamson, and Cole, who were all dealing with the situation quite differently. One officer said about Williamson that, quote, although she did seem to be wailing a lot, making noises of crying or sobbing, there were very little or no tears during the time I was with her. She told police after Logan's body was found that she had, quote, failed to keep her son safe and therefore should be arrested. The following day, she told her mother the same thing, and her prophecy would soon be realized. A friend of Cole's later described receiving a phone call from the man on August 1st, 2021, which he thought was about Logan, where Cole said, quote, "I brought him up since he was a baby. What was I supposed to do?" But in reality, he was talking about Craig Mulligan. It was the discovery of the neighbor's CCTV footage that helped investigators push back against the trio's accounts of that night, as Cole can be seen carrying what is believed to be Logan's body to the river in a black bag, accompanied by the stepson who wanted the little boy dead. Plus, there was the fact that Logan had not drowned, and at 6:20 p.m. on August 1st, 2021, Mulligan, Cole, and Williamson were arrested at their home.
Right, try not to sit down by there a minute, right? Don't want you falling down, right? Have a sit down by there, okay?
Listen, what week is going to sit down?
Okay? Right, you're under arrest on suspicion of murder, okay? So you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention one question, something which relates to medical. Anything you do say may be given evidence. We get social services, okay?
Don't take my children!
No? Okay, it's just part of the investigation.
I haven't done anything wrong!
Okay.
Where is Logan? Where is Logan,
He's still with us at the moment. He's still in the hospital with doctors.
What happened to him?
Can't explain anything further at the moment.
Why is nobody talking to me? You're supposed to be helping find out what happened, not arresting me when I'm telling you my son.
Okay.
What is wrong with you guys? You're supposed to be helping me.
Angharad, I understand you're upset. I understand.
Is your son dead? Is your son been found in a river?
Okay, Angharad. We understand you're very upset. We've got an investigation.
I'm very upset. I've just lost my son. You've taken my other children away.
Cole asked police, "So am I solely being charged with murder, just me?" While Mulligan was combative and cursed the arresting officers as he was taken into custody. At a different point, he told an employee that, quote, "I ain't letting my dad take the blame. No way. I might just plead guilty next week. My solicitor knows all about my mental state and I forget stuff." Mulligan said that he had nothing to do with Logan's death and that he'd only gone out with Cole that night because he thought the man was illicitly getting rid of bags full of fly-addled garbage. In his second interview, he said that Williamson had been awake all night and acting erratically, and that she'd kept him out of Logan's room when he'd tried to enter. He explained that he hadn't mentioned this before because, quote, "I thought it was a dream. I was trying to see because I heard her say he's dead, and I wanted to see if he was okay, and he wasn't." Mulligan was adamant that Williamson was saying whatever she could come up with to get herself out of jail. Cole told police at the jail that, quote, "The thing is, I didn't kill Logan. I heard Craig reciting a rap song saying, 'I like kids, I want to punch and kick them. I've got a moral dilemma. Do I go down for murder or protect my son?'" When further interrogated, he claimed that he woke up to Williamson screaming that Logan was dead, going on to describe the cause as, quote, "a freak accident." He went on to say that, quote, "he was lying on his back with his head to the side in a weird position. Angharad was frantic and hyperventilating. I was desperate to save him. Eventually I stopped and she said, 'He's dead, he's dead. There's nothing I could do.' Angharad said she heard him take his last breath. I didn't hit him in the tummy and didn't see Angharad hit him in the stomach. He had been jumping around all day and it had been a difficult day. I carried him to the river. There's a little steep kind of drop. I put him on the edge. I put him there and then I went back up. Angharad, when I went back up, handed me the dinosaur top. She said, 'We have to get rid of this.' I went out and threw it in the bushes. I didn't really hang about. I was panicking." When she was interviewed for the first time the day after her arrest, Williamson had just learned that there was security camera footage from her neighbor's house that had captured video of her boyfriend and his stepson taking her son's dead body to the river, prompting her to tell police that, quote, "I feel conned, so conned. I wish I had never met him. They've ruined my life. I don't want him anywhere near me again." She maintained that she had slept through the night. Over her first 4 interviews, Williamson claimed that she had no idea that her son had been so badly injured, but during her 5th interview, she claimed that her boyfriend had, quote, "punched him in the stomach. He hit him a couple of times in the stomach because he wouldn't talk, and he said, quote, "The only way this boy understands is pain." He called Craig over and said if he flinches one more time while I'm talking to him, have him, and said sweep and punch, explaining that they had these skills from their martial arts background. She told police that she'd been asleep that night, but they already knew that she'd been awake because of Logan's bedroom light turning off and his curtain being closed in the security video while she was the only one in the home. The revelation was also made that had Logan received medical attention, he was likely to have survived, and probably did survive his injuries for up to 7 hours prior to his death. Logan's father wonders why more wasn't done to make sure that his only child lived in a safe environment. 6 months after their arrests, the trio went to trial at Cardiff Crown Court with Mulligan's identities still anonymous. Each were charged with murder and with perverting the course of justice, which Cole pled guilty to before their trial began. Prosecutors opened by saying in part, quote, "It is the prosecution's case that Logan was murdered, and each of the defendants in the dock played their part in the killing of the 5-year-old child who would not have stood a chance against any one of the defendants, let alone 3 of them together. The prosecution say that having killed Logan behind closed doors in the family home in Bridgend, each of the defendants played their part in the cover-up of the true circumstances of his death. Each was desperate to cover up their involvement in his killing and prioritize their own self-preservation over everything else, and particularly over the needs of Logan." Over 8 weeks of trial, all 3 of them were convicted of killing Logan and of perverting the course of justice on June 30th, 2022. John Cole received 29 years to life, Angharad Williamson was sentenced to 28 years to life, and Craig Mulligan, now 14 years old, received 15 years to life in a youth offenders institute, and his anonymity restriction was lifted. At sentencing, the judge said, quote, "To see these injuries on a small defenseless 5-year-old is nothing short of horrifying. What happened to Logan must have involved appalling mental and physical suffering. It's impossible to imagine the terror of a 5-year-old child as these injuries were inflicted on him in the presence of his own mother. You had an opportunity to protect your son from any further injury and you did nothing." Some have now called for the release of the documents explaining why Mulligan was placed in the custody of J. Cole to be released, when Logan and his younger sibling had just been on the Child Protection Registry and had social workers assigned to them specifically because Cole was considered a potential threat. Not only that, but as the prosecutor said at trial, quote, "By the time Mulligan was taken from his mother, he was already a complex, troubled, and violent boy who had reportedly stated on numerous occasions that he wanted to kill Logan Mwangi, whom he never referred to by name." One former politician stated that, quote, "The public have a right to know what family court judges had and why decisions were made. The most important thing is that lessons are learned, and lessons can't be learned if information isn't available so it can be properly discussed." At the time of Logan's death, his father hadn't been allowed to speak to him for more than a year and a half. Regarding the magnitude of his loss, he said, quote, "My dreams of Logan are so vivid. He runs into my arms and I hold him tight, but he then slowly disappears until he's no longer in my arms. The past months have been hell for me. I shouldn't have to bury my son. My family has been a massive support for me, however, they are also grieving. My father was already unwell, but as soon as he heard of Logan's death, he told me that he had given up and he was ready to go. My father's health quickly deteriorated and he also passed away in December 2021. My social group has also been impacted to the point of collapse. Everyone knows of Logan's death, and I find that people are always looking at me but don't know how to treat me or what to say, so I'd rather not go out. I can't see a future in another relationship or in having more children because I don't want something like this to ever happen to me again. I've accepted that this is my life now. Logan was the sweetest and most beautiful boy whose life has been tragically cut short. The world is a colder and darker place without his warm smile and the happy energy with which he lived his life. The hole that has been left in the hearts of all who knew him will never be filled. No amount of time can heal the wounds that have been inflicted. The wonderful memories I have of my son will never be tarnished. They will forever be in my heart and soul. I loved him so much, and somehow I have to live my life knowing that I will never get to see him grow up to be the wonderful man he would have been. Before I go, I just wanted to let you know that our friend of the show, Antonio Esprit, has just published his first book. It's called More Than My Memoir, and you can get it on Amazon.com. I already got my copy, and I hope you guys do too. As always, thanks for listening. I'll be back in a week with another new episode, so until then, lovelies, don't be scared.